So I'm wondering, sometimes it feels like when I'm doing an accusations audit and trying to like get all the accusations they might have about me out in front. Sometimes it feels like my tone of voice is off-putting, and I'm trying to use a calm, almost like an analyst voice, and I've tried mixing it up, but it feels like I'm missing something, with my tone of voice. Like, could you kind of like give an example of what that should sound like, or do you have any thoughts on that?
How are your accusations audits landing with the other side? Are they working?
Most of the time, the most difficult times that for my accusations audit are with family, people close to me, and I've actually had people call me out. Like I've said, I know, for example, I know that when we have these conversations, you feel attacked. And in response to that, I had a person close to me say, "Don't tell me what you know about me." And I was like, maybe that was my tone of voice that came off, as almost attacking. Because I know that she feels that way. I've actually heard from somebody else that she feels that way when we have these conversations, where I'm really, really trying to get to the bottom of how she feels and how her perspective is, where her perspective is coming from on the situation.
Okay, this is excellent because this is one of those little tweaks that you can use, and it is simply this. We say in accusations audits that we structure them with you may, you might, you probably. You may think, blah, blah, blah. You might think. But if you know something, we say go right at it. And that's
Mm.
usually good advice. But in this situation, she felt judged because you said, I know something. And so keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking to her. I don't know that it'd be your tone of voice because your tone of voice seems reasonable. You want to keep it non accusatory. I like to slow my cadence down with accusations audits and do like the low and slow a little bit, but it's situational, of course. But if she reacted that way to I know, that's good because that's information now that you have. That is important to her that she feels judged. She
Mm.
feels, that again, you're not being curious about her, you're solving the problem. I know you feel.
Mm.
And so in the future with your accusations audits with her, you probably think I'm attacking you. You
Yeah.
might even think that I am just trying to run right over the top of you.
Yeah.
And shorten your accusations audits, move it into you may, you might, you probably, and see how that lands. Because in either
Okay.
case, even with what happened to you, know that it's still working on your counterpart. It didn't land like you hoped it would, but it gives you a lot of information. Because you said you heard this from somebody else. She may know that. She may know that somebody else has been talking about her. She's been the topic of conversation. So now she's
Mm.
wondering what it is you guys are talking about, and
She could feel
that's why she
betrayed by
reacted
that.
that way. But I wouldn't. It's good to examine your tone of voice, but I don't know that that's the real issue here. Your tone of voice seems well practiced.
Reasonable. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I need to really examine like how, or the motivation behind what she's saying in that situation,
Mhm.
and like what's driving her to respond with that, and
And how do you respond if you get it wrong again, or I didn't want to say you get it wrong. If you get attacked again after an accusations audit, what do you do?
label.
Label. It, it seems like I pissed you off with that.
Yeah.
It seems like I failed to be sensitive there. Any of
Yeah.
those things. Fall on your sword and let her talk it out. She's
Yeah.
going to appreciate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I gotta tell you, this, you know, this has saved a bunch of my relationships. You know, I admit after I came back from the war and I had a lot of problems communicating with people, and you know, I buy into this so much because I've seen just a transformation. You know, I used to have a super contentious relationship with my son's mom, and and I am actually now, her and her husband have asked me to be the godfather of their daughter. So this is completely just 180 degrees changed, like my ability to connect with people and have, you know, great long-term relationships. And so, you know, these little tips and just tricks, I guess, that you guys give, have completely changed the way that I communicate. And you know, these little classes that you guys do, 20-30 minute classes, are so good, because if you don't do this frequently, you lose it. It's like a muscle, like fighting or self-defense. The reflexes have to be practiced all the time, and these lessons you do are just, it's amazing. It's worth its weight in gold.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for your service to our country for sure. And I mean that because I have family members in the military and uh, uh, coworkers certainly, and so thank you for that. But I got to say, selfishly, I love hearing people say that because I had the same kind of epiphany with these skills when I started using them after almost 25 years as a cop. And I realized how much, first of all, how much I had changed over those years, but how these things really got to the heart of matters that I had been fighting against for years. And it just completely, I was walking around under 200 feet of water. I started using these skills, and all of a sudden I'm on dry land, walking
Yeah.
around pretty easy. So, um, but you're right. If you don't use these skills and questions like yours about the accusations audit, you don't know how important that is for you and other people because we do it on the team. I do it to myself all the time. I look at something and I go, how did that not land right? Or did I miss something in that conversation? Because, and Chris pointed this out at our last live event. He said that he used the skills or a version of the skills, the training that he got on a suicide hotline for a year. And then he got evaluated and they said, "You're horrible." And he's like, "But I used what you trained me in." And they said, "Yeah, and what we trained you in is the basics. And you've never like grown, basically." And he said, "The Black Swan techniques are the same thing. You can learn them, but if you don't watch how they land, watch the neuroscience in your work, in your counterpart, watch the little brain chemistry change. If you aren't deeply listening and paying attention all the time, you won't grow. And you're growing, very obviously. So good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's way more than about just using techniques. It's about like getting at the heart of the motivation and the sentiment behind what's going on with the other person.
Absolutely.